weapons. Egypt will get nuclear weapons. Turkey will, perhaps others. In 5 to 10 years, you could have a Middle East with half a dozen nuclear weapon states, each one of which gets up in the morning and says to itself, I wonder if we should strike first before the other guy strikes me. This is a prescription for not only instability, but potential disaster. And yet, what is our administration focused on for 2 years? Has it focused on the Iranian terrorist threat? Has it focused on the Iranian nuclear weapons threat? No, no, no. It's focused on a much more serious problem, the construction of Israeli settlements on the West Bank. That's what they focused on. Why pressure an adversary like Iran when you can pressure a friend like Israel? It's a lot easier. And much more to your ideological liking. This is the sort of approach to foreign policy that leads almost inevitably to more trouble down the road. And it's not simply a case of mistaken policies throughout the Middle East, although we could spend even more time on that region. Look at our inability, our unwillingness to do anything about the North Korean nuclear weapons program. Which is confirmed to have detonated 2 nuclear devices, which is almost certainly cooperating with Iran on its nuclear program, which we know is cooperating with Iran on its ballistic missile program, and where we face in the very near future the certainty of a regime change. Kim Jong-il is going to meet the actuarial tables. You can only drink so much cognac before it finally happens. It's not at all clear that his 20-something son, now a 4-star general in the North Korean military, can succeed him. You know, hereditary communist dictatorships are pretty unusual in the world. And that means that there's a real risk of instability in North Korea, instability that could spill across the demilitarized zone and into China with refugee flows. And also bring into question control over North Korea's nuclear arsenal. We should be planning for this regime change in North Korea. We should be talking to China, a very difficult task, but to try and convince China that ultimately it's in their best interest, as it is in ours, to have a reunified Korean peninsula. Just as Germany was reunified, the states in the region don't necessarily favor that, but it's the right policy. It's the right policy for the United States. It's going to be hard for China to accept, but if we're not working on it now, you can guarantee that when it comes down to it, it's going to be nearly impossible to get them to go along with it. We've also seen a near complete abdication of the administration position when it comes to the American military presence in Central Asia and beyond. We're going to be withdrawing our troops from Iraq by the end of this year because of an artificial schedule for withdrawal. We're going to begin a drawdown of our forces in Afghanistan this summer, regardless of conditions on the ground, regardless of the success we've had. And that gives the impression, together with our utterly ineffective policy on Iranian terrorism and nuclear weapons, that America's power in the region is declining. And it's an accurate perception, one that President Obama doesn't seem to care about. Now, I know there's been discussion about the war in Afghanistan, that many people wonder why we're there, what the objectives are. Let me just tell you very briefly, because this is absolutely critical. We have 2 strategic objectives in Afghanistan. One is to prevent the country from falling again to the Taliban and becoming a base for international terrorism as it was before 9/11. That was the objective that led us in to overthrow the Taliban in 2001. It remains a legitimate and important objective today. But second, an objective that we've only recently understood well enough, I think, but one that's critical, and that is we cannot allow instability and radical Islam in Afghanistan spilling over and taking control in Pakistan. We've got enormous work to do with Pakistan as well, but it's very difficult. It's uphill, and it's facilitated in a critical way by military pressure against Taliban and Al-Qaeda from the Afghan side. Why is Pakistan so important? Because it's a country that public sources reveal to have between 60 and 200 nuclear weapons. Now, if you're worried about Iran with nuclear weapons, imagine Pakistan falling to the Taliban now. You've got Iran on steroids. It's a threat to stability in South Asia. It's a threat to have those nuclear weapons get into the hands of terrorists around the world. We cannot see defeat in Afghanistan lead to the risk of Pakistan going the wrong way as well. These are very difficult circumstances for Americans to be in. It's not pleasant to have our young men and women in harm's way in countries far removed from us, where the leaders of the people that we're working with don't appreciate us, criticize us, in the case of Pakistan, arrest our people. Americans quite naturally say, why do we have to put up with this? And the answer is, we're not there fighting for them. We're there fighting for us. I think this is the important point, considering the debate we're going to have here in the next 2 years. We don't need a president who looks out for the interest of the rest of the world over ours. We need a president who is proud of America, who will defend American interests. We're not engaged, or we shouldn't be engaged in defending abstract principles. We're engaged in defending concrete American interests and those of our friends and allies. And that's something I think we need more of a national debate about. Obviously, we've got enormous economic problems, which in many respects are being exacerbated by the president's economic policies. Those need to be debated. But we've got foreign issues that we've got to discuss as well. The rest of the world isn't going to wait for us to get our economic house in order, although I'd like to believe that both Mahmoud Ahmadinejad and Kim Jong-il would have favored the public option in the healthcare debate. But let's remember how important it is to test our leaders on their foreign policy and to hold them to the standard that John Quincy Adams enunciated in 1821 in his, when he was Secretary of State, in his speech on Independence Day. He said, "Wherever the standard of freedom and independence has been or shall be unfurled, there will America's heart, her benedictions, and her prayers be. But she goes not abroad in search of monsters to destroy. She is the well-wisher to the freedom and independence of all. She is the champion and vindicator only of her own." Thank you very much.